stop. Just for 1 second, stop. I need you to remember the exact moment you gave up. The moment your outstretched hand, waiting for so long, finally went numb and you had to let it fall back to your side. Remember the chilling silence that followed your last unanswered text. The void that swallowed your final attempt to plan a date. The hollow echo in your heart when you realized you were done trying. And now you're watching. You're waiting, haunted by a single painful question. Will they even notice I'm gone? What if I told you that the most earth-shattering, gut-wrenching, and ultimately liberating transformation of your entire life is hiding in the answer to that question? What happens in the void you left behind is not what you've been desperately hoping for. It is something far more powerful, and it holds the key to your freedom. For years, you've been living in a drought, begging for a single drop of water from a well that was never empty. It was just locked. You've been speaking a language of connection to someone who only hears a demand. You believed if you just loved more quietly, waited more patiently, made yourself smaller and less needy, that the fortress around their heart would finally open. But the drawbridge wasn't stuck. It was actively being guarded. Your love was not being rejected. It was being registered as a threat. And the moment you stop advancing, the moment you lay down your weapons of pursuit and simply retreat, the entire landscape of your war for love shifts in an instant. This is where your power begins. This is the silent reckoning. You need to understand this. At a bone-deep level, the avoidant person's entire sense of security is built, paradoxically, on your predictable pursuit. Their world is a carefully constructed equilibrium where they hold the power to create distance, and you hold the role of patiently closing it. This isn't a conscious, malicious game. It's a deeply ingrained survival strategy. They need to know you are there, anchored in the harbor, so they can feel safe sailing into their own stormy seas of independence. The moment you stop trying, you aren't just giving up. You are pulling the foundational block from their psychological Jenga tower. The silence they once craved becomes deafening. The space they fought for becomes a terrifying vacuum. Why? Because your pursuit was the proof that they were loved, that they were worthy, without them having to risk the vulnerability of actually believing it. It was the external validation that kept their internal fears of inadequacy at bay. When you withdraw that validation, their entire self-concept is thrown into question. The thought that screams in their mind is not, "I've lost them," but "I was right all along. I am unlovable." This triggers a primal panic, a core shock to their system that is far more intense than the sadness you feel. You are grieving the loss of a relationship. They are suddenly facing the collapse of their entire defensive identity. This panic is not a sign of their undying love for you. Do not mistake it for that. It is the terror of an animal whose cage door has been left open, realizing it has no idea how to survive in the wild. It is the sheer, unadulterated fear of being the one who is finally truly left. Control is the oxygen an avoidant person breathes. It is not about controlling you. It's about controlling their environment to ensure their emotional survival. They control the rhythm of intimacy, the depth of conversations, the pace of the relationship. By being the one who dictates the distance, they create an illusion of safety. Your constant pursuit was a variable they could count on. It was the predictable tide to their shore. When you stop, you seize that control from them. You have, in one silent, powerful move, taken the steering wheel and thrown it out the window. Suddenly, they are not the ones setting the boundaries, you are. And the boundary you have set is a vast, silent frontier they do not know how to cross. This shatters their entire operational framework. The scripts they had for deflecting your advances are now useless. The excuses for needing space are irrelevant because all the space in the world is now yours. They are left standing in an emotional void of their own making, but without the comforting presence of your attempts to pull them out. This loss of control is profoundly disorienting. It forces them to look at the dynamic not from their safe, distanced perch, but from the center of the emptiness. For the first time, they have to confront the consequences of their own behavior without the buffer of your efforts. They can no longer blame your neediness or pressure because the pressure is gone. All that remains is the stark, unchangeable fact of your absence. And in that absence, they are forced to look at the one thing they've been running from, themselves. You haven't just walked away, you've held up a mirror, and the reflection staring back at them is a person alone, entirely by their own design. This is where it gets confusing, where your heart can be so easily tricked. As the panic sets in and their control evaporates, their survival instinct kicks in. This is not the instinct to love, but the instinct to restore equilibrium. This is when you might receive the out-of-the-blue text, the I miss you message at 2 a.m., the sudden memory of a shared joke, the hope you're well check-in that feels like a lifeline. This is what is known as hoovering, named after the vacuum cleaner, because they are trying to suck you back into the old dynamic. You must see this for what it is, bait. It is not a genuine offer of change. It is a test. They are throwing a line into the silence to see if you are still hooked. If you bite, if you respond with the same eager energy, the same open heart, you have just handed them back the steering wheel. You have confirmed that their world is still safe, that the predictable patterns still hold, and almost without fail, once they feel you are securely reeled back in, the distancing will begin again. The space will be reestablished. Because the goal was never to have you close, the goal was to confirm that they could have you close if they wanted to. That confirmation is the drug they need to soothe their panic. Your engagement is the proof that they are still loved and worthy, and once they have that proof, the threat is gone, and they can return to their comfort zone of distance. Recognizing this pattern is your single greatest defense. That text is not a second chance, it's a trapdoor back into the same cycle of pain. Your power lies in letting the line go slack. Your silence in the face of their bait is the most profound message you can send. The game is over. You are no longer a player on their field. When their panic and their hoovering attempts fail to pull you back into the old dynamic, a darker, more insidious mechanism activates intense devaluation. The avoidant mind, to protect itself from the unbearable pain of acknowledging that it drove you away, must now rebuild the story. You are no longer the loving partner they took for granted. You are transformed in their narrative into the person who was never right for them anyway. They will begin to obsess over your flaws, magnifying every minor mistake you ever made. They will convince themselves that your withdrawal is proof of your own coldness, your own inability to love. They will tell themselves, "See, I knew they would abandon me in the end. They were never truly committed." This is a brutal but necessary psychological self-defense. It is far easier for them to paint you as the villain than to face the terrifying truth that their own fear of intimacy caused them to sabotage a genuine love. They are rewriting the history of your relationship, erasing the beauty and the connection and highlighting every moment of friction to create a justification for the current reality. This is why you might hear through mutual friends that they seem fine or even relieved, or that they are speaking poorly of you. This is not a reflection of your worth or the truth of your relationship. It is the sound of their walls being reinforced with concrete and steel. It is the final desperate act of a person trying to build a fortress out of the rubble of a connection they were too afraid to fully inhabit. Do not internalize this narrative. Their story is not your truth. It is the fiction they must tell themselves to survive the storm of their own shame. You may witness a strange phenomenon. They might suddenly embark on a journey of self-improvement. They'll join a gym, start a new hobby, post inspirational quotes online, or even dive into therapy. From the outside, it looks like the change you always begged for. Your heart might leap, thinking, finally they're fixing themselves. Maybe then we can stop right there. This is perhaps the most seductive and dangerous illusion. This transformation is rarely, if ever, for you. It is for them. It is a continuation of their control strategy, now redirected inward. They are trying to become a person who doesn't need the very connection they pushed away. They are building a new, more polished, more self-sufficient identity to prove to themselves that they never needed your love in the first place. It is an attempt to conquer their own perceived weakness, the part of them that might have actually missed you or needed you. This is not growth, it is fortification. True, lasting change for an avoidant does not happen in the vacuum of your absence. It happens in the fiery, vulnerable crucible of a secure connection. What you are seeing is often a performance, a desperate attempt to build a life so perfect and self-contained that they will never feel the pain of loss or the risk of intimacy again. Do not wait for this version of them. It is a mirage. Your liberation is not dependent on their transformation. Your healing must be a journey you take for yourself, by yourself, not a vigil you keep at the door of their potential. Your silence, your absence, your definitive stopping becomes the most powerful force in this entire dynamic. For years, they could blame your neediness, your anxiety, your pressure for their need to retreat. They could point to your actions as the reason for their distance. But now, there is nothing to point to. There is only silence. There is only space. You have become a mirror, and you are forcing them to look at the one thing they have spent a lifetime avoiding, the consequences of their own patterns. Without your pursuit to blame, they are left alone with the stark reality of their choices. They pushed, and you finally let go. They created distance, and you gave them an entire universe of it. This is a moment of profound, albeit often resisted, clarity for them. The internal narrative they've relied on, "I need space because they are suffocating me," crumbles. It is replaced by a much more terrifying thought, "I am alone because I pushed away someone who loved me." This is a nuclear-level realization for an avoidant, and they will fight it with every fiber of their being. They will devalue, they will hoover, they will distract, they will reinvent themselves, all to avoid staring into that mirror. But the reflection remains. Your peaceful, continued absence is a constant, quiet testament to a truth they may spend years or even a lifetime running from. You are no longer the nagging partner, you are the living consequence. And that is a weight they must now carry alone. For so long you have poured your energy, your hope, your very life force into the black hole of their potential. You have been a gardener desperately tending to a stone, believing that with enough love and patience it would somehow bloom. The moment you stopped, the moment you turned and walked away, you did something monumental. You began the sacred process of reclaiming your own soul. All that energy, the mental calculations of when to text, the emotional roller coaster of their hot and cold behavior, the constant analysis of their every word and gesture is now being returned to you. It is a torrent of life force flowing back into your own veins. This is not a loss. It is the greatest investment you will ever make. The withdrawal from them is a massive deposit into yourself. Now, you get to decide what to build with that energy. That focus you once spent decoding their silence can now be used to learn a language, to start a business, to build a stronger body. The love you desperately channeled towards someone who could not receive it can now be turned inward to nurture the parts of you that felt abandoned and unworthy. This is where you stop being a character in their story of fear and avoidance and become the author of your own story of wholeness. The power was never in getting them to love you correctly. The power was always in your capacity to love yourself so deeply that you no longer tolerate a love that requires you to abandon yourself to receive it. You are not empty-handed from this battle. You are returning with the one treasure that matters most, the unshakable sovereignty of your own heart. What you are experiencing right now, this agonizing silence, is not the end of your story. It is the brutal, beautiful beginning. You have been given a gift that you never wanted, wrapped in the pain of rejection and the confusion of withdrawal. That gift is clarity. You now see the dynamic for what it was, a dance of pursuit and distance that could only continue for as long as you were willing to chase. By stepping off that dance floor, you have broken the rhythm forever. You have forced a reckoning, not with them, but with the most important person in your life, yourself. The journey ahead is not about waiting for them to have an epiphany. It is about you having your own. It is about realizing that the love you were begging for from them is the very love you must now unconditionally give to yourself. Every text you don't send is a love letter to your own dignity. Every day you don't check their social media is a vow of fidelity to your own peace. Every tear you cry is not a sign of weakness, but a ritual cleansing, washing away the hope of a future with them to make space for the magnificent future that belongs only to you. They are in a battle with their own ghosts, and you have finally mercifully laid down your weapons and walked off their battlefield. Let them fight their war alone. Your mission is no longer to be a soldier in their army of one. Your mission is to be the architect of your own kingdom, a kingdom built on the bedrock of self-respect, watered by the tears of your release, and illuminated by the fierce, unyielding light of your own worth. Do not mistake their silence for your unworthiness. Their silence is the echo of their own emptiness. Your silence, the one you are cultivating now, is the fertile ground from which your new life will grow. It is the space where your soul, no longer shouting to be heard by them, can finally hear its own wisdom. It is in this quiet that you will remember who you were before you learned to make yourself small for a love that was never designed to make you whole. You are not broken. You are not too much. You are not needy. You are a human being wired for connection, who had the courage to love someone who was terrified of it. That is a testament to your capacity for love, not a flaw in your character. Now take that magnificent capacity and direct it toward the one person who has been waiting for it your entire life. You. The storm is over. The silence is not your enemy anymore. It is your sanctuary. Step inside and come home to yourself. Thank you. Thank you for having the courage to read these words, to feel the ache, and to still be standing. Thank you for every tear you've shed that has watered the seeds of your own resilience. Your journey back to yourself is the most important one you will ever take. Walk in that power. Live in that truth. Go and build a life so vibrant, so full of your own passion and purpose, that the echo of their silence becomes nothing more than a forgotten whisper in the wind of your magnificent becoming. Goodbye, and go be great. Your future self is already there, waiting for you with open arms.